Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Let's talk about the 5 books that I read in June. I will say June was a really good reading month for me rating wise. Like everything was above a 3.5. I was having some good vibes. I was enjoying everything I was reading, and you should be looking forward to all of these books being told in more in depth because I have reading vlogs for all of these coming. I'll say soon, but soonish, because I'm working on them, okay? But I'm really excited. Let's go ahead and dive into the books that I read this month. Starting off, I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This is by Carissa Broadbent. It's the first in the Crowns of Nyaxia duo. There is a novella in between that I have yet to read, but this was the first. This has been on my TBR for such a long time, and I was always really intimidated by it because for me, I love fantasy, but it is so difficult for me for the first like 50 to 100 pages, and sometimes I just kind of don't want to deal with that. I just want to dive into a book, automatically understand what's going on, and that's just me. But I was so excited to pick this one up because I was always told this is like Hunger Games but with vampires. And I kind of agree. It was pretty great. I ended up giving this a 4.5. I said on my Goodreads I was completely unwell after reading this because the end was just so much happened. So in this book we're following Araya, and Araya is like the adopted daughter of the Nightborn King, who is like the head of this entire, I would say, like country of vampires, and there's different like countries and they're all feuding and at war at different times, but she is the adopted daughter of this head vampire, and her only chance to become something other than just like prey essentially for these vampires is to join this kind of set of trials, and it's called the Kajari, and it's kind of a tournament that is put on by this goddess of death, and she's competing against all other vampires. She's the only human, and she's going through all of these trials, and it is so, that's kind of I think where like the Hunger Games comes into it, but it's just so much fun. There is some like romance plot which I absolutely adored, but I really enjoyed like following the trials and even outside of the trials because each section of this book is a trial. So like, for example, part 2 is called Full Moon, so each trial is a different phase of the moon, and I really like when books are like that. I feel like I kind of go through them a little bit faster, but I felt like this was really easy to understand, especially from a fantasy standpoint. I feel like Carissa Broadbent really just kind of goes in depth, but also kind of sort of babies you in a way so things make more sense. But I really liked this one. I'm super excited to read the novella and then pick up the Ashes in the Star-Cursed King, right? I think that's what it's called. I'm waiting till it comes out in paperback though because obviously got to keep things consistent, but I absolutely adored this. I gave it a 4.5. The ending really threw me for a loop. I was unwell. Next, I read The Bad Ones by Melissa Albert. This is a new release from Melissa Albert that I haven't seen really anybody, at least anybody that I follow, talk about. I read Our Crooked Hearts by Melissa Albert last year, and it was like an average YA horror for me. It wasn't like anything great. And I saw this, and the cover is just amazing, honestly, at Target, so I had to pick it up. And I ended up giving this one a 3.75. I rounded it up to a 4-star. Again, it wasn't like the best YA horror I've ever read. I've actually read some really great YA horror, but it was a good time. This book you're following from the point of view of Nora, and there are 4 people in Nora's town that vanished completely overnight, including her best friend Becca, and she's like, what's going on? So you're solving this mystery of how these people vanish, and in the prologue you kind of see these people vanish, and it's all by like a spooky kind of paranormal aspect, so it's really good in my opinion. I love a good paranormal aspect situation. So you're following along with Nora as she's trying to solve the mystery of where everybody has gone. So everybody's lumping her best friend in with this group of 3 people that have gone missing, but Nora knows it's like a separate issue. She thinks that these people have gone missing either for Becca or because of Becca, like it's a whole situation. And in this you come to find out that Nora and Becca as kids played this game called the Goddess Game, and as kids it was kind of just like fun and playful, but then there's the bad one, or like the bad version of the Goddess Game, and that's where kind of everything kind of all the pieces start to come together of the puzzle. So this was really fun. I do think you should go into this a little bit blind. Again, like I said, gave it a 3.75. I really did enjoy it. I wasn't going to like the ending. Sometimes I feel like horror books have such absolutely ridiculous endings, and I just hate all endings. But I really did like the way this one ended. I found it to be a little bit more spooky than I anticipated, and I really liked that. So I ended up giving this 3.75. I got a digital copy early release of Long Live Evil. This is by Sarah Rees Brennan, and it's the start of the Time of Iron series, and I was really excited to read this one. So I ended up giving this one a A 3.25. It's the start of a fantasy series, but to me, like I was saying, sometimes fantasy can be really difficult, but this one almost felt a little bit YA, which is why I kind of liked it a little bit more because everything was very watered down. I do think though, if you love fantasy, you might not like this one because again, it does feel a little YA, but in this one, we're following a girl named Ray who is suffering from cancer and she is dying in her hospital bed, and her sister reads her this book called Time of Iron all of the time. Ray is dying, but she is seized with this opportunity of this magical bargain to go into the novel and become a character, and if she finds the flower of life and death, she lives in real life, and if she doesn't, she dies in real life. And so she does this bargain, she goes into the book, and she becomes the villain, which is really fun and exciting because I just thought it was fun for her to become the villain because you get to see like a fantasy plot point from a different point of view, and I really liked it. I know the author tried to throw in more like kind of more crude or smut type scenes, but they weren't really all there, which is why this felt more YA to me. But to me, it just mostly felt like a fun time. There was some quotes in here that were really funny where she was like trying to explain to her maid, like she's like, ah, Sir Ross and Miss Rachel, and like it was just like the quotes were just funny because like she's from the real world, but she's trying to survive in this fantasy world, and I think it's a really good time. I don't know if I'll continue with this series. I might, depending, because the ending was really fun. Like it was a really fun little cliffhanger, but it was nice to be able to get to know all of the characters, and all of the characters definitely fulfilled the like fantasy character archetypes, which I also thought was kind of fun. But we'll see. It was a little bit dumbed down, but I think it was kind of a fun intro if you're like maybe introing into fantasy to check it out, especially because it felt a little bit more YA. So I do want to thank NetGalley and Orbit Publishing for giving me an advance copy, and this book does come out in July. Publishing date is July 30th, so if you're looking forward to this book, July 30th. It was pretty fun. It was a good time. Next, I read the third book in the Housemaid series by Freida McFadden. This is The Housemaid is Watching. I will say, I was like kind of looking forward to this, but I was very hesitant because I loved The Housemaid. It was one of my 5-star books of last year. I was obsessed with it. I read The Housemaid's Secret and I was very disappointed because it felt just like a carbon copy paste of The Housemaid in a different area, and I was like, no, I wanted something a little bit different, and I feel like Freida McFadden heard me. Housemaid is Watching. It's set a little bit further into the future. We're still following our main gal, and the situations are very different, which I like. We're living in suburbia. We're following kind of like people that are just like being weird and kind of like annoying neighbors and just all sorts of things like that. But I really had a good time with this one. I gave it 4 stars. I thought the like thriller aspects of this were really fun. It was definitely a quick popcorn thriller page turner, but I really had a good time with this one. So if you read The Housemaid and really loved it, but you were disappointed by The Housemaid's Secret, I will say go ahead and continue on because I had a good time with this one. Last but not least, I'm so excited to be talking about this book. I finished Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. This is Riley Sager's newest release. I was so excited. I had finally caught up on all his backlists and I was ready for the new release. Pre-ordered the book. So stoked to read this one. I gave it a 4-star. So in this one, we're following Ethan. This is the first time Riley Sager has written from a male point of view. And when Ethan was a kiddo, he was camping out in the backyard with his best friend, and his best friend was taken in the middle of the night, and nobody knows what happened. So we're following, just like with Riley Sager's other books, we're following a past timeline and a present timeline. I really liked with this one though, the past timeline is multiple POVs. So you're not just following Ethan, but you're following kind of everybody in the cul-de-sac that the night that Billy was taken. So I really liked that. You got to see like what everybody was up to and like what everybody else suspects. And then in the present timeline, a little spooky, Ethan essentially thinks the ghost of Billy is haunting him, and I love a good paranormal aspect to a thriller. It's so good. So there's a lot of different like thrilling aspects to this. There's like the Hawthorne Institute, which is this like spooky institute like a mile away from his backyard where like creepy things happen. All of the neighbors have like weird backstories essentially, and it was really fun. So I ultimately gave this a 4-star. On my Riley Sager ranking, I don't think this is in my top 3, but I do think this is in my top 5 of his books because I did like this one. I'm really looking forward to his next book. Like I'm already like, when is that? Is it time? Because I'm ready. I had such a good time with this one. Those are the 5 books, minus Long Live Evil, that I read in June, and I'm really excited for the reading vlogs to start coming out for these because I go into way more depth there. But I had a good reading month. Like I said, everything was above a 3-star, and I'm hoping that continues because sometimes you get into little slumps, and when books are long or slow or boring, it's difficult. But I really liked these and I had a good time with them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.